The morning sun casts long shadows across the kitchen floor as I fix breakfast. The smell of scrambled eggs and coffee fills the air, and the sound of sizzling reminds me of simpler times. It's a scene straight out of a feel-good movie. My beautiful wife, Jenna, humming softly by the stove, and our son, Max, coloring at the dining table. Everything seems perfect. Too perfect. I take my seat, glancing over at Jenna. Her hair falls perfectly over her shoulders, the light catching just right, highlighting the soft curls. She catches me staring and smiles, a radiant, picture-perfect smile. "What?" she teases, her voice a melody that I've woken up to for the past 10 years. "Nothing," I reply, shaking my head slightly. "Just thinking how lucky I am." It's a scripted line, something I feel compelled to say, but today it rings hollow. I've been feeling this disconnect growing, a silent whisper that something isn't right. But I push these thoughts away, attributing them to work stress or maybe a midlife crisis looming on the horizon. Max's cheerful voice breaks through my reverie. "Daddy, look!" He's holding up his drawing, a crude depiction of our family. There's me, him, and Jenna, and then another man, tall and strangely familiar in the scribbles of a 6-year-old. "Who's that?" I ask, curiosity tinged with an inexplicable unease. "That's Uncle David. He's my other dad," Max says, laughing like it's the funniest thing in the world. I freeze, the fork halfway to my mouth. Jenna laughs, a quick, nervous sound. "Max, what are you talking about?" Her voice is light, but her eyes dart to mine, searching. "It's just a game we play, right, buddy?" she adds quickly, ruffling our son's hair. Max nods, still giggling, and goes back to his crayons. But something cold settles in my stomach. David, my best friend since college, my confidant, the godfather to our son. Another dad? Breakfast continues, but I'm no longer present. My mind races, replaying every late night Jenna had when David was also mysteriously busy. The spontaneous business trips they both attended last month. How had I not seen it? Was I that blinded by trust and love? The meal ends, and Jenna kisses me goodbye, off to her yoga class. "See you tonight, love," she says, her voice sweet, her lips brushing mine. It feels different now, every touch, every word weighed down with doubt. I watch her drive away, the knot in my gut tightening. Today needs to be different. I need answers. I can't let this go. I head to the study, my resolve hardening. Opening the drawer, I find the security system login taped to the back of an old photograph of Jenna and me in happier times. I sit down, my hands slightly trembling as I type in the password. The screen comes to life, showing the quiet corners of our home. Little does Jenna know, last year, after a string of burglaries in our neighborhood, I installed cameras, not just outside but inside too. It was supposed to make us feel safer. Now I'm not sure I want to see what they might reveal. My heart pounds as I start to sift through the footage, looking for any clue, any proof. I have to know. The uncertainty is worse than any truth. I sit in the dimly lit study, the glow from the computer screen the only light. My finger hovers over the mouse, hesitant. Clicking through the video files, I find the dates when Jenna said she was either late at work or out with her friends. Each click feels like a descent further into a reality I don't want to face, but I can't stop now. The evidence is right there, in the digital footprint of our lives. I watch the first video. It's innocuous at first, Jenna and Max playing in the living room. Then another from the same evening after Max's bedtime. The front door opens quietly. David steps in, not as a guest, but with a familiarity that makes my heart sink. They don't speak immediately. Their greeting is a long, tight embrace that doesn't belong among friends. My chest tightens. The kind of hug that speaks of longing and intimacy, one that confirms the nagging doubts I've had. I pause the video, closing my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. The image is burned into my retinas. Jenna's arms around David, her head against his chest. How many times had she embraced me the same way? With a shaky hand, I resume the video. They sit together, too close, talking in hushed tones. Then, Laughter. Her laugh, but different, free and uninhibited in a way I haven't heard in years. I fast forward. They move to the couch. I stop there, unable to watch more. The implications are clear enough. Rage, betrayal, hurt, all swirl within me. But underneath it all is a cold, calculating anger. I need more proof, something undeniable. I call my friend Mark, who's a private investigator. His voice is grave when I explain the situation. "I'll handle it, Mike. I'll get you everything you need to know," Mark assures me. But the comfort his words are meant to offer feels hollow. The next few days are a blur of pretense. I act the doting husband, the loving father, all while every interaction with Jenna leaves me feeling hollow. I watch her, looking for signs I missed, wondering how I could have been so blind. Mark calls me 4 days later. "I've got something you'll want to see," he says, voice grim. We meet in a dingy coffee shop, away from any familiar eyes. He slides a manila envelope across the table. Inside, photos and more video footage, David and Jenna together in various places, evidence of trips they took when she said she was visiting her sister. I feel sick, the coffee in front of me turning my stomach. "And the worst part," Mark adds, leaning in, "I dug deeper into David. He's been involved in some shady deals, Mike, and some of your mutual investments. He's been funneling money out." The betrayal isn't just personal, it's financial. My world, both at home and in business, teeters on the brink of collapse because of a man I called a brother. "How do we proceed?" I ask, the words tasting like ash. "Get your financials in order. Talk to a lawyer. Secure your assets," Mark advises, then adds softly, "and then you confront them." The following week is a meticulous orchestration of gathering records, meeting with lawyers, and securing my financial holdings. Every step is methodical, a counterstrike to the chaos that has upended my life. Finally, armed with enough evidence to bury David and confront Jenna unequivocally, I choose the time to strike. It's an evening like any other, Jenna cooking dinner, Max playing with his toys. The normalcy of the scene makes what I am about to do even harder. After dinner, I ask Jenna to sit down. My voice is calm, devoid of the storm raging inside. "We need to talk," I begin, the standard opener for conversations that end worlds. She looks at me, puzzled, then concerned. "What's wrong, Mike?" "It's about David," I say, and her face pales, a reaction that tells me everything I need to know. "What about him?" Her voice is a whisper, a tremble of fear threading through it. I lay it all out. The videos, the photos, the financial discrepancies. With each piece of evidence, her face crumbles, the facade breaking down piece by piece. "I can explain," she starts, but the lies falter on her lips. "There's nothing to explain, Jenna. I know everything." My voice is flat, the finality in it echoing in the room. Tears start to stream down her face. "I'm so sorry, Mike. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Sorry doesn't even begin to cover it," I reply. My heart aches, not just for the betrayal, but for the loss of what I thought we had, what I thought our life would be. I tell her about the lawyer, the divorce papers ready to be filed, the full custody I'll be seeking of Max. Her sobbing fills the room, a sorrowful soundtrack to the end of our marriage. "But why, Jenna? Why him?" It's the one question that's haunted me through it all. "I don't know, Mike. It just happened. I felt something with him I hadn't felt in years. I thought it was harmless at first." Her voice trails off, lost in her own misery and regret. I don't wait for her to compose a better excuse. I leave the room, the sound of her crying behind me, a stark contrast to the silent resolve settling over me. I have to protect Max, rebuild what can be salvaged, and move forward. That night, I lay awake, the house quiet around me. The path ahead is uncertain and daunting. Yet despite the pain, a steely resolve fortifies my spirit. Jenna and David will face the consequences of their actions, legally and socially. And I, despite everything, will rise from this betrayal. I have to, for my son, for myself. After the fallout, my house feels colder, the silence heavier. Jenna has moved out to her sister's, and the emptiness of the rooms echoes back my solitary footsteps. I keep replaying our last conversation, her apologies, the despair in her eyes. None of it makes the betrayal sting any less. I focus on what needs to be done next, clenching to the routines that keep me and Max grounded during this upheaval. The first legal battle looms ahead, the preliminary hearing for the divorce and the custody of Max. Jenna's lawyer, a slick, well-dressed man who speaks with a calculated calm, suggests mediation. "It doesn't have to be war," he says during our first encounter outside the courtroom. But I'm not ready to back down. This is war, one I didn't choose but am forced to fight. Meanwhile, Mark continues to dig into David's affairs. Each report he sends me unveils a deeper layer of deception, money funneled not only from our joint accounts, but from other unsuspecting friends in our circle. David had been weaving a net of lies longer and wider than I had imagined. "He's been playing us all," Mark concludes one evening over drinks, his face grim with betrayal of his own. David had been his friend too. As the financial disputes add a layer of complexity to the divorce, Jenna becomes more cooperative. She starts to realize the gravity of her situation, not just personally, but legally. Her voice during our rare, terse phone conversations is laced with fatigue. "I never wanted this," she insists, referring to the mess. But the hurt is too deep, and I keep the conversations short, businesslike. The escalation of our personal drama coincides with an increased tension at work. My focus wanes, affected by sleepless nights and constant legal discussions. My assistant Lisa steps up, her efficiency a lifeline in the chaotic storm of my professional life. She handles my schedule, shields me from unnecessary calls, and somehow always has a hot cup of coffee ready when I need it most. Her presence is both a comfort and a painful reminder of the normalcy I crave. During one late night at the office, as I review documents for the next court date, Lisa knocks softly on my door. "You should go home, get some rest," she advises, concern lining her features. I nod, aware of her kindness. "Just a bit longer," I reply, my voice hoarse with exhaustion. Weeks pass in a blur of meetings, court dates, and silent dinners with Max, who seems to shrink under the weight of our new reality. His bright laughter has dimmed, and I find myself desperate to bring some joy back into his life. One afternoon, I pick him up from school, his small hand in mine, and decide it's time for a heart-to-heart. We head to the park, his favorite, and find a quiet bench. "Buddy, you know, no matter what, I love you. And whatever happens, we're in this together," I tell him, my voice firm with conviction. Max looks up at me, his eyes wide and trusting. "I love you too, Daddy," he says, and leans into me. The moment is a balm to my aching heart. Just as I feel a sense of balance returning, a new twist hits. Mark discovers evidence of a secret bank account in David's name, one funded by embezzled money, and some trails pointing dangerously close to my own business dealings. The potential scandal threatens not just my financial stability, but my reputation. I confront David, this time more publicly. We meet in a busy cafe, the noise around us a sharp contrast to the cold fury in my words. "How could you?" I hiss across the table, the evidence laid out between us. David looks cornered, his usual charm deflated under the weight of undeniable proof. "Mike, let me explain," he starts, but I cut him off. "There's nothing to explain. You're going to pay back every penny and then some," I state, the threat clear in my tone. He nods, beaten, agreeing to transfer the funds and close the accounts before any more damage can be done. The resolution with David brings a minor relief, but the battle is far from over. The divorce proceedings get messier, Jenna's despair turning to a quiet resolve as she fights for joint custody of Max. The courtroom becomes a battleground where our private failures are laid bare for legal scrutiny. As the trial date approaches, the weight of everything settles deep in my bones. I spend my nights poring over legal documents and evidence, bolstering my case with every shred of financial record and testimony I can muster. The day of the trial arrives, a cold, overcast morning. I stand outside the courthouse, my lawyer clapping a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're prepared. Just stick to the facts," he advises. Inside, the courtroom is sterile, the air thick with tension. Jenna sits across the aisle, her face pale, her eyes avoiding mine. The proceedings start, a slow churn of legal jargon and procedural dialogue. Each statement, each piece of evidence, builds a narrative of betrayal, loss, and legal redress. When it's my turn to testify, I take the stand, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I lay out the facts, the affair, the financial deceit, the impact on Max. My words are factual, devoid of emotion, yet each one is a nail in the coffin of our marriage. Jenna's lawyer tries to soften the narrative, highlighting her remorse, her role as a mother. But the evidence is overwhelming. The judge listens, his expression unreadable, as the hours stretch on. As the day winds down, a sense of finality wraps around me. No matter the outcome, this chapter of my life is closing. I'm ready to rebuild, to forge a new path for Max and me, free from the deceit that had clouded our past. The judge promises a decision soon, and as I walk out of the courtroom, the first drops of rain begin to fall, washing away the dust of the day. I look up, letting the cool drops hit my face, ready to face whatever comes next. The courthouse looms large as I approach it, the marble facade imposing under the cloud-heavy sky. Today is more than a conclusion. It's a crucible, testing every ounce of resolve I possess. Inside, the air is thick with anticipation, and my heartbeat pounds in sync with the echo of my footsteps in the hall. This is the climax, the day I either emerge victorious or utterly defeated. As I enter the courtroom, the eyes of everyone involved weigh heavily on me. Jenna is there, her features composed, but her eyes betraying the turmoil underneath. Our gazes lock momentarily, a silent exchange of sorrow and regret before we both look away. David is absent, but his presence looms over us like a dark shadow. The judge takes his seat, his face impassive, the gavel a small but powerful declaration of his authority. "We will now proceed with the closing arguments," he announces, and the room tenses further in response. My lawyer stands, papers in hand, his voice steady as he begins. "Your Honor, throughout this trial, we have presented clear, unequivocal evidence of Mrs. Jenna Summers' betrayal of her marital vows and Mr. David Fletcher's role in not only the destruction of a marriage, but also in significant financial misconduct, which has deeply affected my client, Mr. Michael Summers." He goes on to detail every indiscretion, every lie uncovered, and every financial deceit laid bare. The legal terms fly around the room: adultery, embezzlement, fraud, all pointing irrevocably towards Jenna and David's guilt. As my lawyer presents the closing summary, my mind races through every moment that led here. The nights I lay awake, the days I fought back anger and despair, the endless hours spent securing evidence. It's been a relentless uphill battle. Jenna's lawyer stands next, his tone conciliatory. "Your Honor, while we don't dispute the facts of the affair, we must consider the human aspect behind these decisions. Jenna Summers is a devoted mother who has made significant mistakes but seeks to provide a stable and loving environment for her son, Max. He pleads for leniency, for a chance at redemption. The contrast between the two arguments, legal judgment versus human error, is stark. It lays bare the complexity of what we're deciding today. Not just legal rulings, but the fates of real, deeply flawed people. The judge nods solemnly as Jenna's lawyer concludes, his eyes sweeping over the court. "I will take these arguments into consideration and deliver my verdict after a short recess," he declares. The weight of those words hangs over us all as he rises and leaves the room. Silence descends, heavy and uncomfortable. I glance over at Jenna. She's staring at her hands, her shoulders slumped. Despite everything, seeing her like this, so broken, so far from the woman I loved, twists something inside me. The break feels interminable, each minute stretching out as we all wait in suspended animation. When the judge finally returns, the air shifts, everyone straightening, bracing for the impact of his words. Having reviewed the evidence and heard the arguments presented, I am ready to make my ruling, the judge begins, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet of the courtroom. He talks about the considerations he's taken into account, the legal precedents, and the responsibilities of those involved, especially towards Max. Regarding the custody of Maxwell Summers, it is the court's decision to grant full custody to Mr. Michael Summers. The words strike a definitive chord, and a wave of relief washes over me, so strong it almost dizzies me. Furthermore, the judge continues, given the evidence of financial malfeasance, I am also ordering Mr. David Fletcher to make full restitution of the embezzled funds. This court will recommend criminal charges against Mr. Fletcher for his actions. The finality of the judge's verdict sends a ripple through the courtroom. I have won, not just in terms of legal battles, but in safeguarding my son's future and rectifying the financial wrongs against us. As the court is adjourned, the reality of what this victory means starts to sink in. I turn to see Jenna, her face crumpled in tears, her mother holding her as she breaks down. Part of me wants to reach out, to offer some semblance of comfort despite everything. But I know that some distances can't be bridged, not anymore. Exiting the courtroom, the sky has cleared, the earlier clouds now gone, leaving a stark blue that seems almost too bright. I take a deep breath, the fresh air tasting of possibilities. Mark meets me outside, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Mike. It's over." "It's over," I echo, the words bittersweet. The victory is palpable, but so is the loss. The end of my marriage, the public exposure of our private lives, and the betrayal by a friend I once considered family. As we walk down the courthouse steps, I feel the weight of the past months start to lift slightly. There's much to rebuild, trust to reestablish, and healing to foster, especially with Max. But today, I start anew, with clear eyes and a fortified heart, ready to face a future that, while uncertain, is finally mine to shape. The days following the verdict are heavy with both relief and solemnity. I wake each morning to the quiet of the house, feeling the void Jenna's absence leaves behind, but also appreciating the calm that has settled over my life after months of storms. I look at Max, sleeping peacefully in his bed, his face untroubled in slumber, and I know the fight was worth it. The process of reclaiming our lives begins. Max and I establish new routines, simple things like making breakfast together and reading bedtime stories, activities that weave a sense of normalcy back into our disrupted lives. I observe him closely, looking for signs of distress, but he adapts with a resilience that both comforts and surprises me. The weekends are ours entirely. We explore parks, museums, and sometimes just wander new paths in our neighborhood, each step a further distance from the chaos of the past. During one of these weekends, as we're feeding ducks at the local pond, Max tugs at my sleeve, his face serious. "Dad, are you okay?" "You seem sad sometimes," he says, his young voice laced with concern. I kneel to his level, our eyes aligning. "I'm okay, buddy. Just thinking about a lot of things, but I'm happy when I'm with you. You know that, right?" He nods, a small smile breaking through. "Me too, Dad. I love our adventures. It's these moments, these small, perfect slices of time that rebuild me, that stitch the torn parts of my spirit back together." Legally, the battles taper off. David complies with the court order, returning the embezzled funds, which stabilizes my financial standing and starts to repair the trust in my professional relationships. My colleagues, who had been distant during the trials, begin to welcome me back, their attitudes thawing as they see my determination to move past the ordeal. Lisa, ever the efficient assistant and now a trusted confidant, helps me navigate the complexities of returning to full-time work. Her steady presence in the office is a constant in the sea of change, and I find myself relying on her not just for her professional support, but for her straightforward, compassionate perspective. "Mike, you've handled this with more grace than most could muster," she tells me one afternoon as we review the quarterly reports. Her words, simple and sincere, bolster me more than she might realize. "Thanks, Lisa. Couldn't have done it without you," I reply, meaning every word. As the months pass, the sharp edges of betrayal soften into a dull ache that flares up less and less. I start to think about the future, about opening myself up to new possibilities, maybe even new relationships. But the thought of dating again is daunting. The intimacy and trust required seem like monumental tasks. Yet the loneliness of the evenings, once Max is in bed, reminds me that companionship is a fundamental human need. I discuss it with my therapist, Dr. Ellis, during one of our regular sessions. She encourages me to take it slow, to not rush into anything just to fill the void. Rebuilding trust, especially after what you've been through, takes time. It's okay to be cautious, Dr. Ellis advises, her voice both gentle and firm. Encouraged by her words, I start attending social events again, reconnecting with old friends, and even making new ones. It's during a charity gala that I meet Anna, a volunteer coordinator with a warm smile and a laugh that reaches her eyes. We talk easily, the conversation flowing naturally, and for the first time in a long while, I feel a spark of interest. We start seeing each other, initially in group settings, but soon, dinners for two become part of my weeks. She's understanding of my situation, never pushing, always patient. It's a new and tentative dance, one filled with potential yet shadowed by past hurts. One evening, as we walk through the city park, the setting sun casting long shadows, Anna stops, turning to face me. "I like being with you, Mike. I just want to make sure you're ready for this." I take her hands in mine, their warmth grounding me. "I am. It's new, and maybe a little scary, but I like being with you too." She smiles, and we continue walking, the future less daunting with her by my side. As spring turns to summer, the world around us blooms, and so does my relationship with Anna. Max adores her, and watching them together, laughing and playing, fills me with a sense of peace I hadn't dared to hope for. But life is not without its reminders. Jenna reaches out occasionally, mostly about Max. We maintain a cordial relationship, for our son's sake. She's moved on too, living with her sister and seeing someone new. It's strange and yet fitting that we both find paths forward, parallel but separate. The resolution of my past life is near complete when I decide to sell the house. The place too full of old memories. Max and I move to a new home, smaller, cozier, a place where we can truly start afresh. Anna helps us move in, her presence a promise of new beginnings. As I unpack a box in the new living room, Max races in, his excitement palpable. "Dad, can we get a dog now?" he asks, his eyes sparkling with hope. I laugh, ruffling his hair. "You bet. Let's go pick one out this weekend." It's not just a new house. It's a new life, one built on the ruins of the old but stronger for it, forged in trials and warmed by the promise of tomorrow. The journey here hasn't been easy, fraught with pain and loss, but as I look around at what I've built, from the ashes of betrayal to the solid ground beneath my feet, I know that every step was necessary, every lesson invaluable. I'm ready for whatever comes next, with Max by my side and Anna's hand in mine. We move forward, together, into a future filled with hope and the sweet assurance of healed hearts and new loves. Life settles into a new rhythm, the cadence of everyday normalcy now more sweet than monotonous. Anna and I have been together nearly a year, and Max has blossomed under the stability and warmth she brings into our lives. He's more outgoing, more engaged at school, and the shadows of the past seem like a distant memory for him. But for me, remnants linger, needing one last confrontation to finally dissipate. Jenna requests a meeting, something formal yet personal, a chance to talk, not just as co-parents, but as the individuals who once shared a life. It's been over 2 years since the divorce was finalized, and although the occasional text or call about Max's school events or doctor appointments has kept us in minimal contact, this feels different. We agree to meet at a quiet cafe, neutral ground. I arrive early, securing a secluded table at the back. The familiar anxiety, a vestige of our countless conflicts, stirs in my stomach, but I steady myself with a deep breath. This is just closure, I remind myself. Jenna arrives on time, her appearance little changed, yet somehow different. There's an ease about her now, perhaps the result of her own healing journey, or the new relationship she mentioned in passing once. She spots me and approaches, her smile tentative. "Mike," she greets, her voice carrying a calm I'm not used to. "Jenna?" I nod, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sits, folding her hands on the table. "I'm glad you agreed to meet," she starts, her eyes searching mine for signs of the old hostility. Finding none, she continues. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of therapy, and I realized I owe you a conversation, one that's long overdue." Her sincerity sets the tone, and we delve into a dialogue that's been years in the making. She talks about her regrets, the pain she caused, and how it led to self-reflection and change. I listen, really listen, letting her words wash over me, discerning the truth in them. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Mike. I just want you to know that I am truly sorry for everything," she says, her eyes moist. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Thank you, Jenna. That means a lot." It's true. Hearing her acknowledge the past, taking responsibility, it's a balm to the old wounds that occasionally throb. We talk more about Max, about our separate lives. The conversation shifts slowly from the heavy past to the lighter present, and finally, to the hopeful future. It's cathartic, this reckoning of sorts, and by the time we part, something fundamental has shifted between us, a final piece falling into place in the complex puzzle of our past relationship. Returning home, I share the experience with Anna, who listens with her characteristic empathy. "I'm proud of you," she says simply, her hand squeezing mine. "It feels like I can finally move on completely," I confess, the weight of years lifting. As the months pass, the new foundation in my relationship with Jenna proves to be strong. We cooperate seamlessly on matters concerning Max, who continues to thrive, now a bubbly, bright-eyed 8-year-old who's both a soccer enthusiast and a budding piano player. Anna and I discuss our future together more seriously. The idea of marriage is on the table, not as a necessity, but as a celebration of what we've built together. One evening, as we're walking along the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, I decide it's time. I stop, turning to face her, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. "Anna, these past years with you have been the best of my life. You've brought light into our lives when I thought there was only darkness left." I drop to one knee, the sand cool beneath me. "Will you marry me?" Her gasp is followed by a radiant smile, and she nods vigorously. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Max, who'd been in on the plan, runs over, cheering, "You said yes!" His enthusiasm wraps us in a bubble of joy. The engagement sets off a flurry of planning and celebration, a stark contrast to the struggles of the past. Our friends and family rally around us, their support a testament to the community we've sustained and grown. Months later, the wedding is a simple but beautiful affair on the same beach where I proposed. Max is my best man, proud and beaming. As Anna walks toward us, radiant and smiling, I'm overwhelmed by a sense of profound gratitude and love. Our vows are promises of commitment, understanding, and love. Lessons learned the hard way, but all the more cherished for it. We speak not just to each other, but to Max, ensuring he knows he's at the heart of this union. The reception is a blur of dancing, laughter, and heartfelt toasts. Mark, ever the loyal friend, recounts tales of our college days, weaving them with wishes for our future. Jenna, present and smiling, offers her own words of happiness for us, her speech touching and genuine. As the evening winds down, Anna and I walk along the beach, hand in hand, the waves gentle at our feet. "It's a new beginning," she murmurs, leaning her head against my shoulder. Yes, I agree, looking out at the horizon, where the last light of the sun meets the darkening sky. A beautiful new beginning. This final chapter of reconciliation and rebirth marks not just the end of old pains, but the start of new joys. Our lives, interwoven with lessons from the past, promises for the future, and love, so much love, move forward with the assurance that while the road may twist and turn, we'll navigate it together as a family, stronger and more connected than ever. The journey from betrayal to peace, from solitude to love, is complete, and it's more fulfilling than I ever imagined it could be. As the evening sun dips below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the beach, I stand at the edge of the water, the waves lapping gently at my feet. I reflect on the journey that brought me here, a path fraught with betrayal, pain, and ultimately, redemption. Life, as I've learned, doesn't always follow the script you're handed. It writes its own, often in the most unexpected ways. Anna, now my wife, joins me, her presence a comforting warmth at my side. She slips her hand into mine, her touch a silent promise of continued support and love. We watch our son, Max, building a sandcastle nearby, his laughter mingling with the sound of the surf. This scene, peaceful and idyllic, feels like a hard-earned reward, the tranquility a stark contrast to the tumult of the past. I was thinking, Anna begins, her voice soft but clear against the backdrop of the fading day, about how much has changed, how much we've all changed. I nod, squeezing her hand. It's been quite the journey, but I wouldn't change any of it, not if it led us here. She smiles, her eyes reflecting the sunset. Not even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts, I admit. They taught me more than I ever knew I needed to learn. About resilience, forgiveness, and about what love really means. As we talk, I realize how far I've come from the man who sat alone in a darkened room, watching his life fall apart on a computer screen. That man was consumed by doubt and despair, unable to see beyond the immediate pain. Now standing here, I feel a profound sense of peace and purpose, a deep understanding that every challenge was a stepping stone to this very moment. The conversation shifts to the future, to plans and dreams yet unfolded. Anna talks about expanding her charity work, about the impact she hopes to make. Max chimes in with his own ambitions, somewhat less grand but no less important to him. He wants a dog, a big one, and a trip to Disneyland. His innocence and enthusiasm are infectious, and we both laugh, agreeing to his terms without hesitation. Later, as we prepare to leave the beach, I take one last look at the sea, its surface shimmering under the moonlight. The constant ebb and flow of the tides remind me of life's own rhythms, its inevitable ups and downs, its persistent motion forward. Back at home, the house is quiet, the day's events winding down into the soft hush of nighttime. Max is already asleep, exhausted from his adventures. Anna and I sit together on the porch, a glass of wine in hand, continuing our discussion about the future. We should consider moving, she suggests thoughtfully. Somewhere new, somewhere we can all start fresh. It's a possibility I've considered, the idea of a new setting for our new life together, appealing in many ways. Maybe somewhere upstate, I propose, somewhere with space for that big dog Max wants. She laughs, her head resting on my shoulder. And a garden. I'd like a garden. The simplicity of these dreams, so domestic and yet so deeply desired, strikes a chord within me. After all the complexity of the past, the appeal of a simple, joy-filled life is undeniable. We sit in silence for a while, each lost in thoughts of what's to come. The night grows deeper, and the stars above blaze in the clear sky, each one a distant beacon of light. It's a perfect, peaceful end to a day full of reflection and revelations. Before we head inside, Anna turns to me, her expression earnest. Mike, do you ever think about writing it all down? Your story could help others who've been through similar trials. The idea, one I've toyed with but never committed to, suddenly takes root. Maybe I will, I say slowly. Maybe it's time to put it all into words. The decision feels right, a way to close the final chapter on a past that's taught me so much and to offer hope to others who might be facing their own battles. It's a project for the future, one among many, but it holds a special significance, a chance to make meaning from the chaos, to turn pain into purpose. As we finally go inside, the house feels warm, alive with the promise of tomorrow. I take a moment to appreciate everything, the love, the healing, the second chances. Life is never perfect, but it is filled with perfect moments, and I am grateful for each one. This story of mine, of our family's resilience and rebirth, doesn't end here. It continues with every sunrise, with every challenge met with courage, and every small joy celebrated with heartfelt gratitude. It's a story that will keep unfolding, day by day, filled with potential and promise. And as I close the door behind us, shutting out the cool night air, I feel ready for whatever the next chapter holds. For in the end, what matters isn't just the trials we endure, but how we choose to grow from them, how we love through them, and how we move forward, together and stronger than ever.